Okay, welcome to our first series on empathic and compassionate leadership. And I'm joined today by two very special people who've agreed to give their time to help us discuss this topic and also how they are using empathy and compassion to help create mental fitness in the people they lead and also with their loved ones. So I'm going to start the introduction first with Melissa Schreibstein. She is a leadership coach, and she's also the program director of the Wellbeing Advocacy Wellbeing Program at the George Mason University. She also has a previous background in sports psych. And also Catherine Young, who is a scientist, and she's the executive director of the Shepherd's Foundation, which is a not-for-profit helping to look at rare cancer treatment. Prior to that, you also worked in policy work as well. So welcome both of you. Thank you so much for giving your time today. So what we want to talk about today is empathic, which is basically trying to understand how people are feeling, and compassion, trying to basically wanting to help those around you that you're supporting. And today I kind of broken it. I think I mentioned this to you guys earlier, where when this first started, when the lockdown and pandemic started, there was what I call the first wave, where in the first 3 months, a lot of the people I was interviewing, we thought it was going to finish within 3 months. And now the second wave, where our mindset has kind of shifted to like, we don't know when this is going to finish. And we've all started adjusting to our lives and busy schedules. So I wanted to kind of focus the questions today on the second wave, and specifically looking at how you guys are coping and leading both with your loved ones at work to help improve mental fitness. So when I say mental fitness, the first thing of that is basically your well-being, your emotional well-being, because I know for a lot of us, our emotional outlets are not there anymore. I mean, even at the beginning of this, we couldn't see our parents, so it was really kind of tough to find your emotional outlets. And also how you engage with your thoughts. So I call that mindfulness, because we're having a lot of thoughts at the moment, especially being left on our own. So how do you kind of engage with your thoughts? How do you give yourself space from your thoughts? And then the last bit of mental fitness is the mental skills that you're applying to just help deal with the challenges that you're facing today. So I'm going to start off with you, Melissa. So the first question I was going to ask is, what are the top 3 things that have been challenges for you in the second wave, the last 3 months, and also the top 3 joys that you've had in the last 3 months?
Thanks, Sonny. Great questions. And thanks for having me today too. So top 3 challenges, especially in the last 3 months. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with the uncertainty. I mean, we're living through a lot of ambiguity right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, and I think so I think that's the first major challenge, just not knowing when this is going to end, and just knowing that, we have to manage throughout. And there's a bit of, a precarious nature here to what we're facing. Like, is there going to be another shoe that drops? Is my current state of employment going to remain? I've had, since we're talking about, our full lives here, our families, as well as our work, we've had a couple challenges in my family, in my personal life. My dad's going through a second round of cancer treatments for pancreas cancer, which adds a challenge. My brother is getting married in November, and trying to figure out how he and his fiance are going to do and be able to have a wedding like they've dreamed of in this circumstance is really difficult. Yeah. And I think as a leader and as an influencer in the workplace, helping other people to manage the uncertainty and the stress, the pace of my work has not slowed down, my full-time work at George Mason University. In fact, it's increased because we're trying to manage in this circumstance. So just being busy and trying to balance, like being busy with making sure that I take time away. I was telling you earlier, I'm taking a day off tomorrow, and I'm, then today and this full week kind of scrambling to make sure that all of the ducks are in a row so that I can really make sure that I get that time to recover, which has been a challenge with, am I working from home, or is my home my work now? Trying to figure that whole challenge out. So those are the challenges. That was not 3 concise challenges, but you heard some in there. And then I think the joys for me, so I'm not a person that suffers from FOMO. You hear a lot about FOMO, fear of missing out. I have JOMO, joy of missing out. And so, like not having plans has been actually kind of nice. Like not, knowing that just it's provided a time for me to self, because those external places to diffuse our energy and our stress are limited right now. So, it's turning inward a little bit. I've had more of an opportunity to write. I've had, an opportunity to get into deep conversations with friends and loved ones and reconnect with them in different ways. A Zoom call is a lot different from like being in a big group of people. And so I've had a lot of one-on-one connection that has been really lovely. And I have 2 hours back in my day without a commute. And that has been amazing. So the consistency of like my meditation and my workouts and sort of giving that time back to myself has been really excellent.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. Catherine, I'll come back to the points that you've made, Melissa, but I'll let Catherine jump in with your challenges and joys.
Yeah, Melissa, I think you just outlined so many joys and challenges that we're all facing. I think I'm going to just lump my challenges and joys together, because I do find that one way that I try to cope with our current circumstances is to try and understand what the good part is coming out of this, and make that a focus as I kind of try progress forward. So I think, Melissa, you mentioned, being isolated from friends and family, specifically in the first wave, was incredibly difficult. But as we've kind of emerged into the second wave, what does that look like? And this unknown of how long this might be has been incredibly challenging. But going back to your point you made, Melissa, I think even though we are in this isolated world now, for me, the connection with people has actually increased. So, all of a sudden, to just have a Zoom call with a friend is now totally acceptable. Whereas before, I don't even think I would have thought about that. So this kind of renewed and invigoration of contact and reaching out to friends and family, I think has actually been a really positive, even though it's so counterintuitive to this kind of isolated world we're living in. The second thing, which was a major challenge that I have faced with a 6-year-old, and I would gather many people who have families are dealing with, is just the challenge of adapting to this new reality of being a stay-at-home parent, an educator, and trying to just, maintain normalcy in your life as well. So as a leader, specifically in work, we tend to be either innate or learned high achievers. And so all of a sudden you have to kind of go, well, how do I operate now with all this added burden on top of me? So that's been a major challenge. But on the flip side of that, I have found the fact that I have been able to spend so much time with my 6-year-old has been such a blessing, because I would never, if this was just our normal world we lived before, would never have had this extended time to spend with her. And I take that as a big blessing coming out of this. And then the third challenge really, looking at what we are experiencing and trying to figure out what the big solutions are. So my job prior to this was at the Biden Cancer Initiative. And one of my favorite speeches that Vice President Biden gave about cancer was to a group of scientists in Austin in 2018. And he spoke about this theory of punctuated equilibrium. It's the idea that evolution doesn't occur slowly over time, but in response to a major event that disrupts the system. And I view COVID as one of these major events that has disrupted everything from the way we think about society to looking to exposing the gaps in our healthcare system and our education system. And so for me, as somebody who looks at kind of the big systems within rare cancer and goes, what are the solutions we can come to bear with this? I see this as an opportunity for us all to rally around in terms of providing new solutions to problems that have existed for decades now, and to really rethink how we actually operate and do things. And hopefully we've started to reprioritize what's important to us and kind of rebuild some of these systems based on that.
Okay. Thank you so much. I love both of those answers. And I like the way you did intertwine the challenges with the joys, because I think the two have gone hand in hand. For instance, we've got a 10-month-old baby, and it's been very challenging, but it's been an absolute dream. It was what we prayed for, that we'd get to spend this much time with him, and this would have never happened before. But
Absolutely.
the challenge has gone, with the joy as well. And I did want to, the point that Melissa, you made about JOMO, which I think has been really important in this period where, when we started, when you work from home, it's hard to kind of, segregate or put a boundary between work and home. And I think having that JOMO has been very important. If you actually really want to recover, it's okay to not be on social media. It's okay to not be doing anything. And that really helps with the recovery. So I definitely wanted to touch on that part. And something that you just said, Catherine. So when I started, I did a talk series with different people I had on during the first wave. And that was the big theme that came out, that everyone called this the big reveal. It was actually going to show us all the things that we were doing when we were just in autopilot, trying to just get things done.
Right.
Actually, we had to stop and start thinking, okay, is this really good for my health? Do I want to keep doing this? And just start, questioning. So, and I think the talk is that it's going to slowly, evolutionary processes. I can't see things going back to the way they were. I think a lot of people now who haven't done that 2-hour commute, if you ask them to do it again, they're gonna ask you why, and they have some good reasons for that.
Exactly.
Before actually I went to the next question, I wanted to just touch on something that you said, Melissa, of having to deal with loved ones, where this has really shown us a vulnerable side of when we're on Zoom and you're always in your home, and it's not just where you put this corporate face on. You actually have lives and people that you're taking care of. And how have you managed to adapt to this, having to deal with your dad's cancer, and also having to support and help your brother as he's trying to, I can't even imagine how difficult it is trying to plan a marriage, a wedding in this situation. So I wanted to touch on that.
Yeah. Well, the wedding piece of it, his fiance deals with mostly. So I kind of try to keep my opinions out of it. And I'm so blessed. You both of you have been reflecting on the fact that you were isolated from your families. And my parents and my in-laws, who are amazing, all live within an hour's drive from here. So I've actually been going every weekend to see my parents and to see my in-laws, and doing a big grocery shop for my family just about every weekend since mid-March, when we all had to start isolating. So, that's been so important to me. I would never have seen my family that much. I wouldn't normally go up and visit them every weekend. We sit out on the back porch. I mean, I'm so blessed at that, to be able to spend that time. So I think for me, I've realized you realize your adversity reveals who you are, right? Like, and as you said, the big reveal, and Catherine, I absolutely just love what you said, and would love to explore this idea of punctuated equilibrium, and how our evolution happens. But when during the first wave that you're talking about, Sunny, there were many articles that came out about what can you do? How can you further your development during this time? And I kept saying no, that's not what we need to do here. What we need to do is take a global breath, what we need to do is access this time differently. And I started, checking in with my family every morning. And it's something that really we've continued doing. We kind of check in with each other via text every day. And I do that with a number of my friends too. We just, to make it through, we need each other. We're social beings. And so I think really looking to be, I've realized like I can be a strength to others based on what I know about myself. And that's what I've tried to kind of exploit. It's good for me and it's good for them. It's a float all boats kind of thing. So
thank you for that answer. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. It's, one thing for me that this has shown is how we are such a social being and we need connection. So we have family who live near here. They live in Virginia, but we weren't able to see them at first because my sister-in-law is a nurse. So we were really kind of panicky. But then when we got comfortable with the precautions that she takes every day, the first time we met them for a barbecue, it was amazing just having that human contact. So, and we do things now like checking in, not every day, but at least every week we have a Zoom call and we try and get to see each other. So that's definitely been a positive that has come out from this. The point that you just made, I actually wanted to touch on what you said, Catherine, about the punctuated equilibrium and big solutions. And I just wondered if you wanted to expand on that.
I think when we kind of reflect on our lives, the biggest, I think, advancement in whatever area it is that you're looking in happens when something shakes you out of your status quo or your autopilot, like you had mentioned. That's when the growth happens the most. And I think, with COVID, because it was so unexpected, because it's something that a year ago we would never have been able to have predicted. I mean, if you had said to any of us here on the Zoom call, you wouldn't be able to see your family for 6 months, and or just basic functioning of society will just shut down. That's hard to imagine, but it did happen, and now we are responding to that. And I think the testament for us, especially as the US coming out of this, will be how did we respond to this? And because it is something that exposes those gaps, like you said before. And so we will never go back to how things operated, but the test now is to put our minds together collectively to understand what the better solution is for this coming out, whether that is treating a patient or looking at the education system, which we now understand is, has so many holes in it. I think we understood that before, but we never had a reason to really hit the hard reset on anything. It's much easier to continue on forward as you are than to step back, reevaluate, and try to just readjust. That's a much bigger lift than just moving along as usual. So I think we have a tremendous opportunity here as a country, as a society, as individuals, to really kind of focus on what do we want to change and how do we make that change happen.
Okay. I love that point about the hard reset. So I'm going to actually, I will come back to touch on how are you guys hitting the hard reset in your work environment and the big solutions you're coming up with. But I wanted to just touch on the family side. It's just what Melissa said about having your parents close, and it just reminded me of my dad is in Nigeria, my mum is in the UK. My dad is he's in his 80s. And when this happened, obviously you can start to imagine he's in the high risk category. Mm-hmm. And it was quite shocking to me of just realizing that there was nothing I could do. Like I couldn't go to visit them if anything happened. And up to today, my mum hasn't seen my son. And if you told me that before, it would have been quite a shocking thing that would never happen. But I'm now realizing, having to then accept that and think, okay, you can't go to them. What can you do? And I've had to just really focus on calling my dad more than I think he gets upset with me calling him too much. But I just if I can just call and just show him the sun and just let him know that we're here. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about how are you guys how are you creating well-being with your families with the tools that you can? I suppose, Catherine, if you want to start off there.
Yeah, I think it's so easy for us to get wrapped up in what's the right thing to do versus not to do, and how we should be feeling versus not feeling. And I think social media has a big role in that. It's so easy to have inputs shared that you may take personally, or vice versa. And I think the key for me in this, especially when it comes to raising my 6-year-old in this type of environment, is kind of trusting my own instinct in terms of what I think is right for her, and to try and block out everything else. And that's a hard thing to do, especially because we are more isolated. We turn a lot more to, we're on computers all day. It's very easy to get sucked into the social media world. But I think it's important to really become your own advocate when it comes to understanding what's right for you and your family, and to take those steps to make that happen. And that those steps are going to look different depending on who you are and what your family's experiencing. I've known people with families who have just excelled in this time togetherness. There have been no issues or big issues with them. And then the other end of the spectrum, families that are just disintegrating really because of the pressure and the added stress. And understanding from an individual and a family level what your requirements are is important, and understanding that those are going to be different from everybody else around you, and just doing what's best for you and your family, and taking those steps, I think is the most important thing right now.
I love that answer, and I totally agree with you. And having to trust your instincts has been really important to try and navigate this, because if you look at what someone else is doing, that doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Absolutely.
You really have to work out what is going to work for you.
And everybody has an opinion these days, so you really do have to take a step back and kind of have a really hard evaluation of what your specific needs are. And then to kind of almost do like a landscape analysis of what the solutions are out there, and to then tackle those specific solutions that are a fit for you and your family. And I think that's a hard thing to do sometimes, but it's an important one as well.
I think that's going to be one of the good things that's going to come out of this, is that we've all had to come out of our logical thinking brain and have to go back to our instincts, and having to trust that to make a lot of decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do worry though that, especially when you look at the education system and the issues with children having to now be at home, a lot of them anyway, and remote learning, I do worry about, the disparities we're going to start to see, because there are some families that obviously are going to have a lot more resources and support than others, and I think that's why it's so important that you not only take the time to understand what your needs are, but understand that the support you need as well, and to try and figure out what those resources are to help you in that need, because there are going to be families that are going to be struggling, and I think it's really beholden on us too to make an effort to really uplift those who are not going to have the resources and the support that we, some other families have, and I think that's an important part too, is that it's not just about, one family. It's the entire country is going through this. How can we support each other through this?
Yeah, I think, I love that answer as well, because it's shown us that we can't just survive on our own. Somehow we're going to have to get some social connection. It's more challenging, but we have to realize that, by reaching out to other people, you're going to need support, and where you can give that support, you try and do that as well.
Absolutely.
Melissa, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you both are saying in terms of, I think that it's been a real, having to self-evaluate our propensity towards taking risks, like what feels like a risk, what are you comfortable with doing in order to establish and reestablish connections with family and with friends. And I have noticed, especially recently, that for individuals who have done the work around, Sunny, what you're calling mental fitness, right? Who have like, maybe it's you've been to therapy formally. I'm thinking of my brother in particular in a conversation we had recently, and he's done this work. Maybe it's like, you've studied some of these concepts around resilience and optimal performance and managing stress and being able to perform under adverse circumstances, right? Like if you've done some of this work and you've honed your outlook and you've adopted practices that can help you in this circumstance, I think that's showing up too. Like that's the difference between what Catherine talked about, some of these families that like are, in this same pressure cooker that we're all in, and some of them thrive and some of them are languishing. And I think that we're really seeing like how much of this work have you done? Mm-hmm. And so that's been quite revealing. And then the other point I wanted to make really gets at like the community care piece of this, because Catherine, I just think that's so important. This has revealed not just what we're made of as individuals and what we focused on in our family units, but, at a societal level in our country and globally, it's revealing our values in many ways. And what is showing up is not great, to put it plainly. So, yeah. I think that this is a challenge that we as individuals, as family units, as communities, as a greater society at the systems level, we really need to look at like exactly as you said, Catherine, how do we uplift those who are the most in need here? How do we use this moment as a springboard for change? And I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic very cautiously optimistic that there's a potential here for activating forces for good. I'll just say in a way that without the pandemic, like I don't know that we would have seen some of the necessity wasn't there. So we just go along with the status quo. Mm-hmm. But I really hope that in being forced to adapt, we can do that in good ways. And to be honest, that really requires effective leadership. And so, where people are doing well, it's leadership. Where people are not doing well, it's leadership.
Absolutely. And I think too, Melissa, to add to that point, where it is really exposed how just even the basic needs of individuals and families are so at stake here. So even something as simple as a family relying on the school system for their child to get lunch during the day or breakfast, all the way to having access to high-speed internet so that they can learn. Mm-hmm. So all these components together, I think have, the COVID has really shone a light on making sure that even just basic functioning support and necessities are taken care of, mm-hmm. Because we know now that they're not, and how can we even just get to that level of support and empowerment for them? And I think that even just that is a big uplift for our country. But I think we're at a place now where, like you said, it's been exposed, and we can now actually do something about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that point, and thank you for sharing that, Melissa. It's definitely been a big reveal of our values and the things that are wrong. And I'm also being cautiously optimistic that good can definitely come out of this. But I definitely wanted to touch on the point you said of the families and the people who I've seen who have thrived and come through this are actually, the ones who have done the work. They did the work before this happened. They've been practicing some form of mental fitness. And definitely in the online community that I do, I noticed that the families there where they had that real going on holiday, taking vacations together, really involved in the teaching, they really thrived during this period. And there was something on our last community call where someone mentioned, where he said, if you just focus on your pod around you, because in the UK they've created these things called pods. So if you have someone in the pod, you can visit each other because you've agreed to keep the same kind of rules and stuff with contact. So he said, if you focus on the pod around you, just make sure that you can do as much as possible to influence that pod around you and make sure you uplift everyone. Then the chances are they're going to do that in their pod, and then that can spread, really far and wide. And I really love that point in that I think, this is a chance to really, if we just focus on our immediate community and do as much as possible, then that can keep growing and reach as far as possible. And I love the point you made. It is all about leadership. We're found in your family. It starts from the family and then it goes out to work. And the way you lead in your family will show up when you go to work. And that kind of led me to the next point of how are you guys creating those big solutions and in the big reset in the places that you work at the moment through leadership? Who wants to go first?
I can jump in. I think it goes back to really recognizing that everybody is dealing with this differently, and also recognizing that the boundaries between work and life no longer exist. And I think by understanding both of those really well, you can kind of meld together an environment that works for people based on their own needs and their support, their needs of support during that time. So, for example, and it's a two-way street, right? As a leader, I need to be able to give that flexibility and allow the employees to adapt, because I, at the same time, need to do the same thing. And so I cannot, enforce things that I simply cannot live up to either. And so it's really kind of releasing those expectations in a way, to be able to function in a totally different way than what we've been used to, and allowing people the space and the time to be able to adapt to the new normal and to still be able to provide the support for the work to continue going forward, and understanding that may look different for now and being okay with that. I think one of the first things that really helped me through this was going, I have a lot to do now, and I'm probably not going to do any of it very well. And I'm okay with that, because right now my priority is making sure that my family survives day to day on this, and we come out okay at the end. And I'm okay with, not being able to complete my full to-do list today, because I know they will be tomorrow in my room that I'm in every day. So, it is one of those things where it is about reevaluating expectations and understanding that the work will get done. It might just be on a different timeline, or it might look different right now, and that's okay. And I think that's important for a leader to be able to release that from your employees.
I love that answer. Definitely. I love that answer, what you said of your to-do list is always going to be there, but prioritizing your family, because unfortunately I have a few friends who have suffered from serious burnout and just having a breakdown because they didn't adapt to their to-do list. They were still aiming for that promotion, and to be fair, the financial fear of you feel that in your head you still have to perform because you don't want to lose your job is really, very real. But I think I love the point of prioritizing what is really important, and first and foremost is your family. And the way I always think is, if you don't have your mental fitness and you're not there and you're trying to work for your family are not going to be happy when you're broken down. So
right.
Right.
I mean, nothing really is going to get accomplished either on the work side or, balancing your family if you don't have good mental fitness at this point. Just everything will suffer. And so being able to take those steps to ensure that integrity is maintained so that you are available at work when you're needed or with your family when you're needed, I think is really important.
Yeah. And the point you mentioned about flexibility as well. So my wife just recently started working here, and she's moved. So we both worked in the corporate sector in investment banking, which was very much corporate. You don't really show your private life. One thing I loved in the new place she works at, it's an online education company. Her boss was very much, once she realized she had a kid, was like, it's okay to bring your kid on calls. She would even ask, where is his name's Judy, so she would ask, where's Judy? So then all of a sudden it was like, she would never have thought to like, I'm going to bring my kid on a conference call. And now it's like, it's okay. And it's really given a lot of flexibility. So.
Yeah, absolutely. My 6-year-old is on about 80% of my Zoom calls in some fashion.
But not this one.
I know. She actually just tried to come in a little while ago, but she heard me, so she stopped. But I think, it's such an important point to make that, before we would have done everything in our power to, keep those boundaries up and our lives separated. And now, she oftentimes will kind of get, pretend that she's working and taking a call, because she's seeing me actively doing that, and it's like, this is what moms do, so I'm 100% okay with her just being a part of my work, my day-to-day work, because I think it's good for her too to be able to see what her mom does, and it allows me to incorporate her a little bit when I'm kind of on the work zone as well.
Yeah, it's definitely good to be able to bring all yourself to work. I find it's very freeing. My wife tells me it's been very freeing for her. So
it is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Melissa, did you want to go?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more that there's just been there's some beauty that's added when you get to see where somebody lives, when you get to see somebody's kid or their cat or their dog or their whatever, like it's hard to work from home every day. It's difficult to have these lines blurred in some sense, but like that flexibility that I think has been offered has made such a big difference. I mean, I don't have kids yet, but my friends who do, like, they express, as you both have, like both the struggle and the joy in terms of how they're juggling things right now. And one thing that this conversation is just making me think about is like the importance of, as a leader at home and at work, in our family situations and in our work life, I think it's so important to know and to model the fact that like nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect, right? Like we're all going through this together. And, I'm a well-being person. Like I do like well-being consulting. I'm a leadership coach. Like, some people might look and say, oh, don't you have it all together? No, I don't. Like there are mornings I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to do this again today. And I have to have the strategies that, I have the strategies that I know I can put into place that help me keep going. But I also know that I can give myself grace. I can give the people that I work with grace, my parents, my family, my friends, like we are struggling. And just because it's messy, just because you are scratching and crawling and muddling through many days and maybe not performing up to, where you exactly want to be, as you said, Catherine, like it's okay. And I feel like there's this paradox for those of us that are high performers, that are leaders. We want to strive for improvement constantly. We want to bring our best. We want to be excellent. And we have to both hold on to that desire and continue to like set goals and try to push ourselves and our teams forward, while also understanding that like, it's not always going to be that way, that we need to take time away to recover, that some days you're going to be late for meetings, that sometimes you're not going to get that thing done on time, that it's just not going to always look great, but we can keep moving forward. So I would love for that, and like a people focused approach to our work to continue.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that point, and I think that kind of sums up what I'm trying to get. The intention of this talk is showing empathy and compassion.
Yeah.
I think normally in high performance environments, you always want to give your best and set this standard. But I think now this is really making us understand the vulnerability of the situation, and having to really show that empathy and what's the person going through, and showing compassion all the time, and that's the best that they can give today. Yeah, that's the best they can give today.
Absolutely.
And the point that you said nobody's perfect, it was actually, so my mentor and supervisor, She was one of the first persons who actually held her hand up and just said, I'm struggling. I'm having a grumpy, she calls it a grumpy day. And by her doing that, it actually made me start to realize that I was actually having grumpy days as well. You kind of think, oh, I'm the mindfulness expert and blah, blah, blah. And
Right.
no, you still wake up and some days are a struggle. And yeah, just trying to accept that and just say, it's okay. Today's, just give the best that you can and let's see what happens tomorrow. It's been very...
And Sunny, if I can just add, as a leader, I think what this has shown us, so scientists, when we, in our training, sort of lack the training in terms of emotional intelligence and the soft skills when it comes to leadership. And so I think what this has shown us is how incredibly important those are as a leader. And those of us or those who are leaders who have really embraced that and have worked hard to hone those skills, I think their employees are really flourishing during this time. And on the flip side, those who haven't or struggle with that, you know, will probably find a very challenging work environment for them. But I think it's shown us how important that training should be for leaders, and how as individuals we need to continually work on those skills, because that really is what is allowing us that comfort and that support to kind of push us forward and ensure that our work is always moving.
I had to do the hand clap because, like, yes, preach, Catherine, preach. Because, like,
I saw that. I was like, what?
I know, I've never seen that before.
I had to put it in there because, like, you're so, like, you're just speaking, like, the truth, you know, in a couple of ways. One, like, what we call soft skills, it ain't soft, you know, like, otherwise, these are really the hard skills. Like, these are the essential skills, one. And two, we can develop them, you know? So I think, like, there's just it's so important just to recognize both of those things. Like, we can't get by on just our technical skills. No. We have to have the interpersonal communication abilities. We have to have emotional intelligence, you know, like, we have to be able to really connect and understand. I had one really crap day. I had a crap couple weeks, and my boss wrote me a note and said, like, hey, like, can I give you a call this afternoon? Like, it seems like, are you okay? And she just called and checked in on me, you know, and was just like, what's going on? And it just freed me up to be able to say, oh my God, here's what it is. And then after that, my days have gotten so much better. So just getting to know your people, allowing for that space to do it, and recognizing if you're somebody that's not comfortable in, like, the people orientation of your work, at whatever level of leadership you're in, like, you can develop that. You can put the talents and strengths that you have to work to develop those areas as well, which I think is just so cool.
Absolutely. If I knew how to give you a hand clap, I would.
Okay, reactions down at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Click on there.
Oh, there we go. See, you learn something new every day.
Yes. There we go. I was just on that final point. I was actually going to add, so the course, your program that you run, Melissa, actually Wellbeing for Leadership, I think it's one of them. And I was really amazed when I saw that course, because I didn't know something like that existed. But I remember in the UK, in the corporate sector, there was something similar. But whenever directors would get promoted to MD or VP, that course to them was just like an annoyance that, oh my God, I can't believe I have to go for this. And it was just like a box ticking exercise. So sadly enough, a lot of these leaders, for them, it looked like a soft skill. And I hope now that what's happening now, they have to realize that it's not a soft skill. Like, you're really going to have to understand emotional intelligence and how to people manage. So I hope this is one of the things that's going to come from that.
Can we just start a campaign to, like, you know, rephrase soft skills? Like, there has to be a better word for that. Like, let's just, like, the whole community just needs to adopt a new word for this, because honestly, it is not, like you said, Melissa, it's not soft at all. It's the most important and hardest of skills. And you know, it does that title does it no justice.
Yeah.
We'll start this campaign after this.
There we go. I like it.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. I've just come to the last bit where I'm just a last question from each of you. if there's one thing that you can share with the world of how they can improve their mental fitness, what would that be? More than one if you want. But.
One thing. So when I think about like the foundational components of well-being, where I go is like our body, our mind, our soul to a certain extent. So, you know, for me, it's take care of your foundation, take care of your body, move, sleep, breathe, eat well, like those type of components. Take care of your body. You know, take care of your mind by staying engaged and learning. And also like knowing when to turn it off and knowing when to recover. So knowing how to push and then knowing how to let up on the gas. And, you know, feed your soul. And I mean, for me, like that really gets at like connect with others, connect with something that is greater than yourself. That might be your friends, your family, your loved ones, your social circle. It might be your faith. It might be getting out in nature and experiencing awe, but, you know, really like take seriously that it's effortful. You have to put something into it. And you will, and it's a journey. Like this is not, you don't just show up one day, say, fill up at the mental fitness gas station and you're good to go for life. You know, this is what life is about.
I mean, that was perfect. And I don't think I have much to add to that because I was going to say, you know, I'm a neuroscientist by training. When we talk about memory issues, we always say, eat well, get enough sleep, you know, drink enough water, get exercise, you know, the basics, what you mentioned, Melissa, and that applies to everything. It applies to be able to just function well physically. And I would add to that, and this is something that I've started doing. I downloaded a meditation app, and I don't have much time in my free time during my day, but it allows me to choose a time that I can just sit and listen and focus for even 2 minutes in the start of my day. And it is the one thing that I think that is just my own time. It really kind of sets the tone for the day. And since using it, I've found it a really great, a really great change in my life. And so I would add that in that, find that even if it's a 1 or 2 minute period in your day that you can use for yourself and it's just you. I think that is a helpful tool as well.
So much. Brilliant answers. Thank you again, both of you, for your time. It's been amazing having this conversation. Yeah.
Likewise. Can we
do it again? Yeah. This has been a great energy boost for me. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you, Sunny. Thank you, Catherine. It's really good.
Same here, Melissa and Sunny. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, guys. All right.
Take good care of yourselves.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.